Welcome to the Big Cats Women's Program 30th Anniversary Podcast. I'm your host, Simone Wern, and over the next few episodes, we'll be celebrating 30 years of women's baseball at the Springvale Lions Baseball Club. Join us as we share the stories and the moments that have helped shape our program and make it what it is today. This week for episode 2, we're excited to be joined by the girls from Gippsland, Hannah and Nicole. Affectionately known as Jacko and Bonds, the girls joined the Big Cats from Sale and spent many a year travelling down 2 or 3 times a week to be part of the program. So come along and celebrate what has been a great 30 years full of memories and laughs. Let's get into it. All right, welcome. Episode 2. Very, a long time after episode 1, I suppose. It's good to see you girls. How are you?
Not too bad. We've made it here.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, sorry we're a little bit late.
6 weeks. That's okay.
Minor details.
That's okay. Grand entrance. I'd expect nothing less really from you, Han, to be honest.
Well, look, I didn't walk in heels. I didn't walk in a dress. I walked in pants. So that's a win.
It's a little disappointing that you
it.
didn't dress up because any real big occasion you do.
Yes.
I'm not sure if I might have one photo of a dress in here, but
you didn't look very hard then, did you?
I actually spent my afternoon, I hope no one from my work is listening to this, because I did spend a little bit of time this afternoon trawling through Facebook. You have a lot of photos, and a lot of them are really interesting photos, and we're about to see.
Oh,
and
no.
I think Nick's a bit scared here.
I'm relatively safe, but I don't know.
Careful.
Great.
I'm
We
pretty
used to
excited
take a lot of photos. Remember where we used to have those cameras and you'd take tonight's out and you used to post literally all of them?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know my
we
Facebook
did
used
that.
to be like that. Yeah.
You
I
don't
think
clean
that's
up or
coming
no?
up.
Oh, my memories. They're a time.
Trust me, I didn't pick too many bad ones, only a few.
Oh, dear.
Episode 2, we've had a name. Of course, you are the girls from Gippsland, and there couldn't really be another name for it. We had Chevy and Beto in last week, and they're obviously the mates. You two are the mates as well, but you're still the girls from Gippsland. And I wanted to take it back in the day to this beautiful setup. And, you know, I would consider a review of your Facebook, Han.
Yeah.
These came directly. Actually, I believe one came from Nick's page and one came from yours. But 2010, 12, and this is sort of the period of time where you guys arrived at the club. Whilst I let the viewers take a better look at these photos for a minute, tell me about you guys coming to Springy, what you remember about that time.
Well, I think, so we'd been playing for a while. I mean, we both fell into baseball due to our brothers playing and we had nothing better to do and felt left out. And we were kind of there anyway, good old Sale baseball days.
Yeah.
But I think there was a couple of other, I mean, technically Gippy girls, but they're a bit more Valley girls comparatively. Carly and Rhiannon, who were playing down in Melbourne and for Springvale. And so I think it was more around, oh, what are you guys doing? You guys are playing girls baseball. We're like, that's a thing.
Knew nothing about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were kind of like, oh, well, why don't you come down? Like, you know, there are these really great people down there. There's this chick called Simone Wern, I think her name is, and you know, she seems to be a pretty good pitcher. So like, if you want to get some pitching training, you should probably come down. They've got a few other pretty good people down there too, who all meant
None as good as the first one.
Huh?
None as good as the first one.
Oh, yes, of course. And I think that was kind of like the roped in because I think I came down, I think my first season was 2008, 9, because I turned 18 in 2009. And then I think I was like, oi, come with me.
Yeah, I took a little bit more convincing. I was 18 in 2010, so it was the drive thing was a challenge. So I think I took a bit more convincing, and mum and dad very, very supportive. But it was that I was pretty shy back then.
Your dad was pushing you into
yeah,
it.
big
He's like,
time.
come on, you
yeah,
gotta
and
play.
so he did. He started dragging me out of school to drive me down there. Just that little like, hey, there's all this stuff down in Melbourne that you didn't know about because all we knew was Gippsland. We knew Hannah and I grew up across the road from each other to go right back. So that's why we've got some. Like the older photos, like best of friends, like neighbourhood, best friends, and then dragged each other across the baseball, and then hand dragged me down to Springvale along with some convincing. I went on to find, and
so these are interesting, and the photo on the left has come up at least a couple of times in the podcast we've already had, and that is the day at Malvern.
I recall this. Yeah.
It was grand final day. Berwick Springvale was playing Springvale. You two were playing for Springvale. I was playing for Berwick Springvale, Berwick, whatever you want to call them, and it just hailed. Yeah. And all our cars got ruined, and we didn't play, and clearly we played at Springvale the next week. But that was that day, and then the photo on the right is the week after when the mighty Berwick Springvale defeated Springvale in that grand final.
This must have been after we finished crying.
Yeah, definitely.
Or before the game.
We reflected and we must have been sabotaged or set up in some situation. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think so. But the time that you're talking about, Han, I believe is here. And this was the 2008-9 Premiership. Yep. And we played at Malvern. So that's on the mound at Malvern. Gee, we all look young there. Even I look a little young. And even Mick looks a little bit young there. But that's, I think, Premiership 1 for you of quite a few, and we'll come back to that. You're probably going to tell me how many you've won. But what I thought was interesting about this, and I have really clear memories from this grand final because, Nicole, you were in the crowd.
Yeah, I came to watch, yeah.
And someone had been saying, oh, there's this girl from, Hannah's great, isn't she? But there's this other girl. And her name's Nicole, and, she's this and she's that. I was like, whatever. If she wants to play, she'll play. And then I saw you on the side throwing, and I was like, oh my God, someone has to get her down here. And, of course, Hannah did.
Yeah.
But that happened this day. So you didn't play, but you were there. But it was famous for other reasons, and this I was going to leave this to the Mick Wern story
I
at the
was
end.
thinking this would be the Mick Wern story.
But I couldn't. This has to be a segment almost. And I couldn't find the exact photo. Hang on. It's the famous play, for those who aren't aware of this, and I love sort of bringing up stories because for some reason, memories of games and moments is something I'm good at. I was pitching in that game and you were playing first base.
I was.
This is not that game, but this is a reflective photo for us to bring back our memories.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a memory of the incident I'm talking about?
Oh,
and can you tell the listeners about it?
So, to set up the scene, actually, we go back to my 18th birthday where the Springer girls very thoughtfully put some money together and had purchased me a first base mitt, which ironically has not really had much use since then, especially, well, at least in the Springy department. And so we got to Malvern and it was sunny. It was very sunny over the top of Simone Wern's head on the pitcher's mound. And, doing my little best at first base. And, Simone gets a comebacker. Can't remember if she fumbles it or not. I would expect
Definitely not.
And turns to me, throws the ball. Ball goes into the sun. Hannah misses ball. Oh, no. A bit later in the game. Oh, look, Simone's managed to get herself a ground ball again. Cool. Picks up ball, throws to Hannah. Ball goes in sun. Hannah misses ball. Oh, no. It gets to the end of the game. I imagine it was close because that's why the pressure was on, I suppose. Yeah. But all I remember was it was the last play of the game. We've got 2 outs. We're about to win this grand final. And ball gets hit to Simone. I'm like, oh, yep, here we go again. Simone turns to me. We made eye contact and I can see it. I'm like, oh no, not this again. She bends down, does a nice little lunge, and her best lawn bowls roll to first base. It is like time has stood still. It is the longest, however many feet it is, between the mound and the first base. And it gets into my glove, and we win.
I feel like it was silence.
This is the grand final.
Yes. Yeah, this is the grand final. Yeah, absolutely.
Silence. And I, when you're trying to bowl, and I'm not a very good bowler, but you're trying to time where you release, and I thought it was maybe a touch too short.
Yep. I remember
maybe
reaching.
It needed to be a bit quicker. So we're like waiting, and you're like, come on. She was out, so it didn't matter.
I think you can do the Mick imitation better than I can.
Well, I was going to say to Nicole, the best part of this whole story is that we got the out. That's all we cared about.
We won.
You didn't care that I was like,
nah.
You can't catch it. Sorry, Hannah.
No,
I'm rolling it. I didn't care that you couldn't catch it and I had to roll it. We just got the out.
And we won.
However,
The team meeting.
Team meeting after the celebration of winning.
Yep.
And our coach, Mick, well, what an embarrassment. An embarrassment to women's baseball. There's a reason people don't watch you. Ridiculous. You're rolling balls to first. It's embarrassing. That's all I really remember of that whole grand final.
But I feel like there was probably a visual that came along with this of Mick.
Oh, yeah. I really don't want to impersonate.
No, I don't think we can in this confined location.
We can't, but, I mean, people can get the gist of
yes,
what
absolutely.
happened.
I also don't remember anything else from that day.
No, those are the two things I remember really clearly.
Firm but fair from Mick.
Yeah, sounds about right.
But we won.
There's a few things I want to talk about. And, of course, you two both had quite a few photos on Facebook. It's been hard to find some from some of the older folk, but I found a few on yours. We're going to talk about the drive, and I've written literally because there was the drive to get there, but the drive to keep playing. And you both were pretty competitive, still are, Han. And Nick in her footy now. The opportunities that you both had or are still having, the different eras you're involved in, a few photos to spark some memories. And then our quiz called 30 in 5, but it's never in 5 minutes. It's usually in like 20. But let's have a go. We'll start. So the drive for you guys, I mean, Gippsland, as Nick's already mentioned, like it was a big ask, and she wasn't even 18 yet, to get in the car and drive that long. How far was it? And how many times a week were you doing it?
It's like 2 hours 15.
Yeah,
2.5.
depending on how.
Yeah. On a bad day.
Yeah.
Or who was driving.
Yeah. But yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
But I think we both started driving up when we were on our L's. So we got our 120
that's
hours
good.
up pretty quickly. I think most weeks we came down for both training and the game.
Yeah, I think you definitely did. You were like, had Daryl was driving you. Dad pulled me out for one a week, I reckon.
Yeah.
Like maybe the main session, and then definitely game days on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think when, state stuff started picking up, coming down to Melbourne at least 3, if not 4 times a week for trainings and games and those kind of things.
What was it like? I mean, and you're both pretty social. I mean, you were and you still are, but you obviously had a lot of mates back home and did stuff on the weekend. Like, what was it like making that commitment? It's a big commitment. And you both turned up and you didn't really know anyone. And, tell me a little bit about what it was like getting in the car. And were there days where you're like, oh, God. I mean, I'm sure there were. There are for everybody. But what was sort of that period like when you sort of started the trek?
Started the trek, we probably weren't driving as much. And we kind of had the ability to turn around and be like, oh, Dad, I'm too tired. Can you take over now? And I definitely remember when it started becoming up to like me to drive myself, it was like, oh, I guess I can't be so hungover on a Saturday morning to drive all the way to Melbourne. Interesting. On my P plates, I need to be 00. I will have to take this into consideration. But on some situations where we were driving home, I definitely remember a couple of events that I was driven home from to Sale because I was not going to be driving.
I didn't have that issue so much. I was working a lot. I was working at the pool and gym, so a lot of my hours were weekends. So we were like playing Saturdays at Springy and then quite often playing Sundays at Sale. Yeah. And then I was like working in between that. So the dedication and the drive was definitely towards work and baseball at that time. Like I didn't really. My cousin came with me a lot, Erin, and that social outing would have been around like we'd get dinner on the way home. So we just made it like a social event was the drive. It wasn't just like, oh, we've got to drive up to Springvale to play baseball. It's like no, it's an opportunity. We're going to Doncaster. We'll go here on the way home. And the drive from Sale to Melbourne is a lot shorter than the drive from Melbourne to Sale. I don't know what it is, but it's just like there's more to do up here, I think. So you've got like more to look forward to. Okay. It makes the drive a lot easier. But I don't know, you guys early on came down and ran a few clinics in the valley. And I think people would attest to that. Like it was a long way for you guys to come down to run that. But it was nothing for Hannah and I to come the other way. I don't know, it was easy. It was the reason to do it was there, and that made it all worthwhile. It genuinely didn't feel like Dad might say different, but yeah, to me it didn't seem hard.
But I think it's that kind of similar logic for when you go on holidays. It always seems like it's really quick to get there, but it's really long to get home.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, once we did start coming down to Melbourne, you're right, like we had so many more opportunities down here, and so it was kind of like, oh, we're going back home now. Cool.
Our friends were down here, and our baseball was down here. And
okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I do want to say big thank you to your parents, because they did a lot of driving and committed a lot of their time, which I'm sure, you know, they love doing for their kids, but I know it was a big ask, so a big thank you to the parents. I hope you're listening. But obviously the drive was there, and there was some reward for you guys at the end too, and you were both involved, and we've got a few photos at the end too, but there's a couple of sort of, this is in the middle, this is 15, 16, and these are the sort of between like 13 and 17 where we won 6 in a row. So there was this real purple patch of, we've had a long purple patch, don't get me wrong, but that there was 6 in a row there, and you two played a pretty big role in those years. Do you have really fond memories? And Nick, maybe you can go first, because you don't play. I don't want to say anymore. You don't play at the moment.
I don't play at the moment.
Comeback is potentially on the cards. But what was it like? I mean, there was such great competitive games and some great people, and I'll talk a little bit about the people later too, but what are your memories of winning some of those flags and playing with some of those girls?
Oh, incredible memories. Extremely talented group of individuals to come into a program that's already so well established when I came in during this era. It was just a really amazing opportunity to learn from some of the best in the business without even really knowing it. Because quite naive coming from Gippsland, not being exposed to any women's baseball or a lot of baseball other than Latrobe Valley League. So a little bit naive coming into it. But to reflect back, I was playing with some of the best in Victoria and in Australia at the time, and perhaps the world. Extremely, influential in the growth for me as a sporting person, as a baseballer, and as a human. Like, I know it sounds pretty big, but I was a really shy person growing up. Hannah will know this. And then, it took me a lot to come out of that and to grow out of that shell. And this was sort of the first sort of exposure to something a bit different that I didn't know. I don't know. Incredible memories. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. It's always great when you bring up the photos, and you know, pretty much every guest that I've had, he's sort of looked up and you can see the smile and it's really cool that I was part of that. Yeah. Han, what about you? And you're still living through some of these amazing times now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I feel like I'm contributing more now than I did back then, which I think I'm just looking at the photo there and I'm like, Oz, 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 Oz. And it kind of was like, it's not that we were necessarily bad at the time or anything like that, but it's not necessarily about comparing yourself to others, but talking about just the level we were at and the level of and the quality of the players that, not saying that the quality is lower now, but it's more just the if you were to do overall resume of that team, it's pretty stacked.
Pretty stacked is a good way of putting it. I mean, it's interesting you say that, because the conversation that I had with Mandy and Albie, I don't know if you guys watched that one a few weeks ago, but it was really interesting hearing their perspective, because they were sort of like, well, we were these sort of low level, we didn't really contribute, or we tried to contribute, but we weren't the stars. But in their own right, they were stars. And the way they were able to impact the team might not have been through hitting doubles like Shay, but it was through somehow getting a walk and getting on. And then Shay gets an extra at bat, and then... and I feel like it was very similar. I'm actually underselling you, because you both have been very good players.
But I think comparatively at the time with
maybe at the time. Let's run with that. But I mean, you both played a number of different positions. Han, more so in the outfield. Nick, I think more so for you, it was you as the hitter and you as the athlete that were probably the areas that you excelled in. But also, like, you've both pitched, and I've got some photos of that too a little bit later. But you've both sort of been utility players and you've both been able to have an impact. Do you have any memories from a training point of view, a development point of view of being able to work alongside people like Shay and or the coaches that you had and going, okay, I've come from Gippsland, I'm sort of being exposed to this pretty high level. Like, that's pretty cool. What was that opportunity like, and how did you find being in a position where you could have that opportunity to be exposed to that level of coaching? And
I think at the start it was hard because, and again, no disrespect to anyone who has coached us before, they were absolutely doing the best with what they were provided with. But I think, you know, but when we got to Melbourne, we had lots of bad habits that kind of needed fixing. Like, and it even from like a basic technical perspective, from, you know, basic throwing mechanics, there was like a, you know, no one had told me. I can give a perfect example that's just come into my mind. You know, I had not been told. I didn't know what a 2-seam versus a 4-seam was, and not from a pitching perspective, but just from a throwing a ball perspective. I always threw with 2 seams, and I already have a lefty tail, so that did not help. And it was just basic stuff that I hadn't been taught before. So even from that level, it was really useful to come in and get a new perspective on training, let alone, you know, the feedback I'm still receiving from Shay in terms of hitting and those key milestones. Yeah. Oh, my non-red hair. My 3 red hair days.
Well, that's the Berwick Springvale year on the right, but obviously on the left is a couple of years later when I'm coaching. I think that was one of my knee injury years, and I wasn't playing. I was coaching. But Nick, what about for you, being sort of exposed? And I'm interested to hear both your thoughts on, like, I was talking to Shanners about this a few years ago, and she said when she came from Malvern, so a bit of a different scenario, she came from a different club, but she was like, this is so exciting, there's all these good players, and then she got there and went, oh my God, like, I can't play here, they're too good for me. Like, this is intimidating, how am I I'm going to really have to up my game. And that sort of drove her passion and commitment and, you know, motivation, I suppose, to want to get better. Did you find that something similar, or what was that part of it like?
I think it can go one of two ways, can't it? It can either be motivating, or it can be scary and demotivating, and you kind of go, go back into my shell. Or, a little bit of both, and that's fine. And for me, probably a little bit of both, but there's people in the program that make that a bit easier, whether they know they're doing that on purpose or intentionally. And it's no one's fault, but like, you're lining up next to Shay, and that is intimidating. That is intimidating, and you've got...
Still is, hun.
Yeah.
No comment.
In a great way. And a great opportunity, but it's people. For me, it was like Kel Manzi. It was just that like quiet person that could pull you aside and have a like, hey, what about this? Or let's do this off to the side because I'm not good in groups and I'm better one-on-one. And it's just people like that for me. Chevy within the program,
awesome.
And having the different coaches that we had as well, and the different ways that they've influenced. Mick, extremely direct, extremely down the line, which is now reflecting on. Myself as a 32-year-old is how I receive feedback now, but back as an 18-year-old, I wouldn't have been so good with that. So it was having those different people within the group that helped deliver that message in different ways, and then the care that people showed coming into the program. I felt so comfortable so quickly, as much as I was still a very reserved individual back then. I really was made to feel at home. And then, the opportunity to grow in the program rather than shy away or fear that, the professionalism that we had. And, like just hitting balls at training, it was unlimited. You could stay for hours, and I wish I had the time to have stayed for hours, but it was always the back of your mind that we've got the drive home to do. Comparing it to Sale, where we first started, where my dad was the coach or Robbo was the coach or whoever it was, it was like, we're going upstairs for dinner. Like, let's go. We've packed up. This was people were out for hours, lights on, hitting ground balls, fly balls, whatever it might be. So it was just, totally different experience we had from what we were coming from.
Also, before you change the photo, can I ask if you did any alterations to this? Because there is no way you are that much taller than me. I'm fairly sure I'm taller than you. I look so small.
What are you
taller than
you are taller than me.
No, I look like I'm too close to your height.
I have not photoshopped
I'm
this.
not
and
convinced.
if I was going to, I'd take out those white glasses, which appear multiple
So many
times
photos.
in this.
They were popular for a few seasons.
Is that going to be a
Seriously,
segment in
they're
your
on
podcast?
they're in 2 slides, so we'll come back to them.
When we get to your podcast and your episode, are we going to talk about the
There'll
glass
be no Simone
evolution?
episode. I'm on every episode.
That's a good point, actually.
The opportunity, and of course, their opportunity is not necessarily at Springy, but I think through Springy and through the development of you guys and of us as people and as players, we've had a lot of opportunity to do cool stuff. And of course, you two have both been able to do some pretty cool stuff when it comes to baseball. That photo on the left is obviously Han, you and Nick playing. So Nick was playing for the Northern Territory with one of our mates and a Big Cats player, Gossie. Shout out to Gossie. And that's you on the left playing for Victoria. And then, of course, on the right, you know, cool stuff you get to do. That you were at the World Cup in 2014 when we won a bronze medal as part of the Aussie Hearts. So talk me through these photos, girls.
I mean, it looks like it's quite dark in one of the night games, so we're probably somewhat tired.
What kind of fun did you have with that?
This was cool.
Team,
Yeah,
Nick?
this was a lot of fun. I don't recall the exact ins and outs as to how I ended up in the NT team or what happened around Victoria, because there was white and there was blue. I recall that.
Yeah.
But Gossie tapped me on the shoulder, or it was like an email via weird or something along those lines, and I was like, nah, I can't miss this. And so jumped on board the opportunity to play Northern Territory this season with Gossie and a few other awesome baseballers from around Australia that for whatever reason didn't end up on their state teams, and I had a lot of fun. We didn't do all that well, so we'd never played together, and yeah, we tried our best and we had a lot of fun. But yeah, I don't know if we played against you guys or if I come to watch and this was maybe the end of one of my games, but obviously couldn't miss the opportunity to get a photo of Han and that awesome necklace that I'm wearing. I don't know who let me wear that, but
it's better than my glasses.
Thanks
so
for the
you're
heads up,
doing
everyone.
Oh, look, where do I begin? We've been on many of adventures since this journey began, and I think if I started listing countries I've been able to visit as a result of coming down and playing baseball in Melbourne, we would be here for a...
We don't have that long, do we?
We do not have that long, and we don't have time to recount every single adventure on each of those trips either. But I think from a, you know, like an honest baseball family perspective, it's absolutely there. Like, you know, you don't continue to travel with the same people if you don't get along. You don't, you know, opportunities like for me last year going to Japan and playing under Rissa with Shay and Gabby was, you know, me thinking I was a bit washed up. Still think that, but that's okay. You know, was one of the best opportunities that I've had in my life. And you know, that wouldn't have happened if I didn't come here. And there are other things like the Aussie Hearts and other trips, and whether it's pure competitive baseball or for those reasons, or whether it's more the social baseball lens, it's like you can't get those opportunities anywhere else.
It's pretty cool. Very cool. Another couple, so I've got there obviously another photo from that Nationals, and I remember, I do think that actually happened via email, and Gossie seeking out, for some reason you weren't available for the Vic team, and then this came up and we found a way to get you in, and I'm glad we did.
Me too.
I was pitching coach that year, and we were staying at the same hotel, and we were like, you know, Vic team. Yeah, so everything, and I would walk out of my room and you guys are just running amok, having like the best time ever, and like I had a great time too, even though we didn't win that Nationals.
Is that the Nationals where we left people behind because they weren't on the bus on time and they had to walk to batting practice?
Yes, it is.
Well, that didn't happen for us. We were having a lot. We were in the pool. We were having a lot of fun.
Oh, we heard.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But on the left too, and I thought this was really cool to bring up, and this isn't necessarily a Springy story, but I still think it's cool because you went on this team with Dino.
Yep, and
Lel, and one of the best players that is currently playing for the Emeralds, Morgs, who's on this team as well, and a few others, Borgo and Alex Worth I can see there. But tell us about that experience.
Yeah, incredible. This was in Arizona. We got to play against the USA team prior to the World Cup in, I think it was it in Canada that year? In Vancouver. It's in Vancouver. So this was like a week out from the World Cup.
Yeah.
And we got to play in like a practice match for them. And we nearly didn't make it. Our flight got delayed and Dean pulled his hair out trying to get us over there. And he did an amazing job. So he sent us like a text at 2 a.m. saying our flight's been cancelled. Don't stress, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And by 8 a.m. it was like 10 of you were going via Auckland with a 10-hour layover in LA, and then you'll get to Arizona with 4 hours before the game, but it's all right, I'll pick you up. And he just made it work, and then 10 of you will go directly there and you'll get 24 hours more than it. Anyway, logistics aside, we made it, and we had an awesome experience. And then from there, I think we flew to Vancouver, and that's where we must have played a few other teams. And I think we got to play against maybe you guys, maybe the Australian team. Yeah. And awesome experience. We had a lot of fun as well. Obviously, the Aussie Stars, we weren't playing for points or anything like that. We were just, the opportunity to go and play against the best, and then, give them an opportunity to play as a warm-up to the World Cup, and then stay on and cheer on the Aussie team. So we did a lot of that and also had a lot more fun. I became really close to these girls. Yeah.
Awesome. And a shout-out to Dino, who's been a massive supporter and still is of what we do, and is developing a great program at Newport, going from strength to strength. So to Dino and Lel, we tip our caps if we had one.
Good to hear.
Speaking of opportunities, Han, so I had to get one Let's Go photo in, but you've been super lucky because you obviously through the Springy connection, the Aussie Hearts connection have, made a great friend in Let's Go. And this was one of our trips, 2016, where we stopped off in San Fran. And this was us with Let's Go before we went to the All-Star game in San Diego.
Oh, yeah.
But amazing memories and amazing mates. I said you turned up all those years ago in 2008 and didn't really know anyone. And here we are all these years later, great mates and still great mates to this day. And a couple of other cool ones I thought was going to Japan. And, of course, Megumi's front and centre because she is a Springvale player and obviously is leading the high school over there. And then we're on Yankee Stadium, on the field at Yankee Stadium. I mean, does it get much better than that?
Well, it does because they told us not to touch the grass, and I may have pretended like I dropped something and then stole some of the grass and put it in my pocket.
Where's the grass now?
Oh, look, I think it disappeared, but,
worth it.
I definitely touched the grass. I hope I don't get in trouble.
That's very funny. Good memories.
Those glasses.
A couple of others, so I could not, I really should have photoshopped these, but so many. I mean, you guys particularly have been in the middle of, like, all the winning. I mean, we didn't win every time, but I've got the sensible photo on the left with the shield, and that shield does not exist anymore. It's in our trophy cabinet because there's a new trophy. There's been, like, 3 since, I think. And then I've got the Nicole photo where she's drinking a Carlton Draft, which is after one of our games. And, oh, my God, the white glasses are in both of those photos. I know. Sinead is not going to be happy with me. But some more great memories. And then the pitching side of it. I mean, neither of you are sort of well known for being the pitcher, but you both did some pitching. Talk me through the pitching, Hannah. I mean, you're still working through it.
Still working. Had Welshie, shout out to Welshie, helping me last night. We were looking at some stuff, although as I'm hoping Gabby will attest to, the 2 worst pitches I threw were the only 2 that Welshie was watching me for. But I threw, every other one was a strike, I swear. Look, I think, this sounds a bit dramatic, but from a whole baseball career perspective, everyone's been trying to make me a pitcher my whole life, being a good old lefty. So I think I get more opportunities and more chances than others might. Not bad at an old pick-off every now and then, so I think that keeps me in the game. But I think, you're right. Pitching for me has been very much up and down throughout my baseball career. And I think we're kind of at a stage now where, you know, a lot of those anxieties are kind of cleared and it's like it's going to be what it's going to be. And as long as I'm kind of more positive about it, I've got a system from a mechanics perspective now. It's more just about those habits. So I think for me, it did take a long time, and we talked about kind of unlearning bad habits before, but, you know, it's even those kind of mechanical pieces that weren't necessarily bad per se. It was more just trying to work out the approach to what I'm trying to actually achieve while pitching.
Yep.
And, you know, obviously I've had some amazing pitching role models in like yourself and Ella and Kat and Shanna's and, I mean, everyone in the team but Shell, right? Isn't that the goal?
Oh,
Shell's
coming on in a few weeks, and I'm going to ask her. I've got some photos of it.
Well, I would like to say that it has been said on multiple occasions, if it gets to Shell pitching, we're in trouble.
It's probably an accurate statement.
Or now.
No offence to Sloane.
No,
if she's
absolutely none. But now we can say we're either in trouble or we're at Masters.
Yes, that's true.
There you go.
Everyone has to pitch at Masters,
Oh,
and everyone has to catch at Masters.
there you go.
Yeah.
And survive.
Do you remember getting on the hill, Nick? And did
Oh,
you want
bits
to?
and pieces.
Did you want to?
The
Or
shy,
did
the shy part of me is like, nah, get me out of the spotlight. I don't want the spotlight on me. No, I not like a natural born pitcher or anything fancy.
Yeah.
It was just get up there and throw strikes. Like,
Yeah.
wherever she put the glove was just try and hit that and let the catcher do the work sort of thing. Like, they're sort of smarter than I am, and I'll just try and get the ball in the right spot. Not a natural pitcher. I did a lot of pitching in Sale in the men's comp and pitched the B grade to a grand final, and we lost by a couple of points. We were winning when I came off, and then
Oh, no.
anyway, it went shit after that. But I don't know what it was. In the men, they just try and hit the shit out of the ball because they see a girl up there.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is great.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm not going to throw. I didn't have junk or curveball. I just
Let them get
hit
themselves out.
spots,
Yeah.
and they just would try and hit you for the fence every single
I know
swing, and
that
you go,
feeling.
this is great. And it went really well for me, but yeah, just nothing fancy. I didn't mind it, but
Yeah.
it wasn't probably my preferred position to play.
What was your favourite position, just out of interest?
Oh, second base was Shay
Yeah.
at shortstop, or
Han?
I mean, I like my right field spot. Give me a 9 to 3 all day. It's my favourite.
love that.
I like it when you get those.
Love that.
I had to bring this one up because this is one of my favourite premiership photos. You know, you get the team photo, and there just happened to be really good lighting this day. And I feel like Vic might have made this picture at the time and gave it to us
Yeah, this
as
is
like a
very
gift at the end. But I just loved this photo. Like, I thought this photo was awesome. And it's a great memory, this one.
I think it helped that it was at home.
It was Super Saturday, so this is 12-13 flag.
Yeah, massive. It is a great photo.
That's a good photo, isn't it? The different eras. Now, the photo down the bottom has come up before because I was reliving how much it hurt me that I couldn't play in the grand final against Essendon in 2018 at Cheltenham. I'd been travelling for work. I hadn't really been around, and I'd had a few typical niggles through injury. And Han, you tell us, you hadn't been playing.
Was this one of my injuries? Was this one of those times, or was I just not available?
No, I think you disappeared for some period of time.
Ah, that happens.
I think you've been travelling and you weren't playing.
That's very possible.
And then you decided you were going to play, but it was like 6 weeks before the end of the season.
All I remember about this day was how mad Shay was that me, you and Toro were playing in the twos and not in the ones. And then we won the twos and the ones lost.
Shout out to Shay.
Thanks, Shay. Love you.
Yeah, we did. So we played in the twos and we won.
Yep.
And it was really cool. Like, it was great fun because we were obviously playing with some of the kids who went on, like Balin and Maddie
I see
and
Hanami down the bottom.
Haichi, who went on to end up playing in the ones.
Yep.
And obviously Bay's still playing in the ones. And Lil went on to play in the ones and obviously isn't playing at the moment. But also the older girls like Val and EJ and Cass and Minnie and Dodza. So that was a really fun win anyway.
Yeah.
And then up the top, Nick, I don't know if you remember this. That was a tough day, but the ones did win, and we were part of the ones team as well. But we played Waverley in the twos grand final. So you and I played in that team, and we pretty much got shellacked. Do you remember?
Great. Love that. Well, I don't remember this.
We
on
got
this, playing
beat
with
up.
Val and Cass.
Yeah. So that was good fun. I played the whole season pretty much in the twos that year. And I think you were sort of coming in and out. I don't think you played.
Was it a hiatus?
Every
like going
game?
to play?
Yeah, I think you had other stuff on. You might have been working or something. And so you were around, but you were playing in the twos. And then we both sat on the bench for the ones. And
love it.
we're in that photo. Woo! But so much fun. And I love that photo too because Mitchie
Mitchie
is now like 16 or however and 7 foot tall.
Way taller than all of us. Yeah.
And he's this
combined.
just gorgeous little bat boy. But that was a really fun season.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, a lot of my fun was had, and Mandy is also someone that helped me into the club, and she would call me Bonds, and had a great relationship with my parents. So to have played another season with Mandy, in any team, in any conditions, in any in any way is amazing, and I'd do it again if I could.
She still calls you that too. Anytime your name comes up,
it's Bonds.
She talks about that. But the different eras, and Han, you've played with like a heap of different players, like in different people, and a couple, like obviously you've had the imports. So I've got a great photo of Yuki, who was just a character and is still a character. She's coming back to the Melbourne tournament, which will be great. Shout out to Yuki. But you and Sloane have played quite a lot of years together. So I think Sloane's first year was the Berwick Springvale year, and she played for Springvale.
Yep.
In the twos.
Yep.
And so we'll talk to her about that. But talk to me about some of the characters you've played with, and give me a little bit of insight into Sloane, playing with Sloane for a number of years. And obviously you guys are mates. What's that been like?
Look, I think Shirl and I joined the team at kind of times where we definitely were the lower half of the order. And again, we've kind of mentioned that already. But I think from a kind of like support for each other perspective, it was very much a, hey, we can contribute too. This is how we're going to contribute, whether it's like a bunt or, let's just get that next person over, and that kind of like, we're not aiming for the fence. I mean, possibly am now. But, at the time it was very much, okay, how can we contribute to that game? And I think because we were at a similar level, we had similar aspirations. We were kind of going for the same thing and similar ages. So it kind of all worked.
Yeah.
And, seeing her become, I'm going to say an adult. I mean, we've technically always been adults as our friendship, but, married with children now. Shout out to Arfie and Gigi.
And not Benny.
Benny's here. Benny's just here for it all. He's our ultimate fangirl, honestly. He's the best. I think, just seeing, and not just Shell, but with like all the girls that I've played with across the years, seeing, where we were. Like I was 17 when I started. I was just finished year 12, where now I'm, depending on the day, depending on what position I'm in, I'm like a fully fledged nurse now, and seeing everyone coming through and their kind of life journey that they've had through this time, because I think it ends up being this is my 16th or 17th season heading into, so like that's a big chunk of a lot of people's lives. And from a character's perspective, there's been so many from all different walks of life, so many different countries, like all that kind of stuff. And it's just a privilege to have met so many different people, and we have really good values at our club, and so people who stick around do have similar values, and so it kind of helps contribute to, like, I guess, the strength of the program.
Absolutely. Very well said. And speaking of characters and different people that we've played with or come across, and you've already sort of mentioned Chevy, Nick, but talk to me a little bit about the relationships you created with the likes of Chevy, and potentially some others that you might want to add. But this was that day at Melbourne, and you and I had been in the twos, and then we were on the bench and we were helping out in the ones. But what did things did you learn from some of these girls, and what was it like to be around some of them, on and off the field, I suppose?
Well, Chevy brought a very relaxed way of going about it, like very professional, but did it with this like cool, calm, collected approach. And I think that's something that I really appreciated and enjoyed, because the game's very serious and we play to win, and we hate losing. But in amongst all of that, we have a lot of fun and we enjoyed along the way. And Chevy, for me, really, really showed that in a lot of the way she goes about things. And I don't know, like quite different people, and certainly there's a big age gap in terms of like when I was playing then, but I felt really close to Chevy and really comfortable around her and really safe to learn and to ask questions and to get things wrong, and then we get back up and we fix it. So I felt like I had a really good relationship with Chevy. I mentioned Kel Manzi, like amazing when I first got there. Kind of similar, like versatile kind of players. We're not massive people, but throw us behind the mound, put us on the mound, chuck us second base, put us in the outfield. We'll just sort of try and make it work. And so I tried to sort of, I guess base my game around kind of how Kel went about it.
That's really cool, actually. I'm really glad you brought that up, because Kel's been mentioned a couple of times, but the comparison between you two, now that you mention it, is like, I'm like, wow. Because it's just lefty and righty, like athletic, play anywhere, like get up the line quick, never complain, no, just go about it competitively, but never over aggressively or anything like that. So I love hearing you talk about that, because I love playing with Kel too for those same reasons, and love playing with you for the same. Han, this is the last photo. I'm gonna have my white glasses on, but. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about Simone, but you've sort of been in the thick of it. You've had me in your ear for a very long time, often potentially yelling at you, trying to do it in a constructive way. But how has that relationship grown for you? Because we're mates off the field, but when we go to the field, I'm still helping you. And one of the reasons you're such a great person around the club and on the team is because you love learning. And the things I'm finding that we all have in common is that we're still trying to get better, and we still think we can get better. Talk me through that and how that's evolved for you.
Look, I think, I mentioned before, I started the club when I was 17, I'm still actively playing now, and I don't foresee stopping anytime soon. But I think from developing who I am as not just a player, but who I was as a person, I think from a broader team approach, definitely had lots of different options for role models in lots of different ways. Like, I could take what I wanted from everybody and be like, cool, I want to be like that person in that way, or I want to be like that person in that way. And so I think it definitely shaped a lot of like who I've become. And I think it's quite, mentioning our relationship, I think, coming from that little kind of kid mentality. I remember the first social event that I was effectively invited to. Okay. I had this one was probably the best of the bunch, to be honest. But I remember I had driven all the way down to Melbourne, by myself, and it was a washout. And then I was like, and then, we were working out the math for how long we had to wait around for. And then I was doing the maths of, okay, so if it's effectively driving up and back equates to about 5 hours worth of driving, I would like to at least have spent 5 hours in Melbourne to make it kind of worth it. And it was my first Halloween event. And I remember kind of awkwardly sitting in the corner being like, oh, okay, people are talking about this party. I don't want to assume that I'm invited. I'm definitely not prepared. And I do remember that what we ended up doing with that evening was, I think Huffy had her nephew's little police kit. And so basically I had put my warm-up shirt inside out. So it was just a navy blue shirt. And then I had put this little police, probably 8-year-old child's pretend, bulletproof vest on, a little cap on, and that was my costume. And I would be surprised if we end up down that road later.
I was sure you bought that costume yourself.
No, it came from Huffy. It was just a thing. Yeah, no. So and so it kind of goes. It went from that almost like that shy piece that you were talking about before, where it's like a cool, like these guys are too cool for me. They're gonna invite me to their party. To, you know, us having like these days we can have really strong, in-depth like conversations and can disagree, and through some of the hardest parts of my life, like you guys have been there, and like yourself as a prime person in that space, like it is just evolved so much. And I think that's both on and off the field in terms of, you know, my place, like how I was playing as a player early days, and how, you know, your coaching style was for me at that time, and how even you've developed as a coach, and how that evolution has created your style differences, which has managed to get more out of me and a better result and response out of me over the years.
Has the respect for me grown after I got rid of those glasses?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It couldn't have gone downhill, surely.
Yeah. I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah. Can
some
confirm.
great memories, Han, and some great stories. I found this little gem.
It's amazing.
This little gem in the archives.
I was looking for that jumper this morning.
Fundraising for the club. And then we moved to where Han really did her best work.
Yes, absolutely.
Was in the dress-up department, and I wish I could find the photo of the full outfit, but it's probably better I didn't.
What an absolute shame.
For the viewers watching, that was a standout year. At that Halloween.
Strong by you too. That's a.
Look! These parties, they
that
had some of the
handmade
best
costume. I did not hire that. I made that, Nick.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Some of the best costumes.
And the glasses have improved from the white ones.
Somehow. Dear me, the glasses.
I like how this is the photo you went with, because it's probably the most appropriate photo out of all of them. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There could be kids watching.
Yeah.
We had a few Halloween parties. You've already talked a little bit about the experience in Japan, but I really wanted to include that because one of the other people who's sort of been along the journey, well, I suppose both of them, but you have spent a lot of time with Gab in a few different places, and you've seen her develop and her grow into an adult, some might say. Maybe
legally,
close.
Yes.
Talk me through the role you've played without knowing. Like I come to work every day and my students say, I'm not a leader. I didn't learn to be a leader. No, you've developed the skills through this, and this. I know you go to work and you have to have strong conversations and stand up and, you know, talk to people, negotiate, problem solve, all those things. Without even probably knowing it, you've done all these things with Gab and with the kids. Have you enjoyed that role? Are you still enjoying it because you're still doing it?
Well, the roles are somewhat reversed. The first time Gabby and I went to Disneyland together, I am not going to embarrass her on air, but I was definitely the role of the carer. I remember we're like, oh, I am the adult in charge of you. What has happened here? I am now the adult. And then our most recent adventure to Disneyland, Gabby was the predominant organizer of that trip. So I am very happy with how our relationship, where we've ended up. But I think you're right. I think in a professional context, I know I'm a leader. That's very much built into a lot of the roles I'm in now. Mm-hmm. And so then when I am outside of work, I like to I actively try to avoid formal leadership positions. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, what you've mentioned there, it's like, I want to be a good role model because I want to be a good person, and by default I'm I guess a decent role model. And so I think, you know, it's been really, really cool seeing like Gabby and some of the other kids kind of growing into adults and coming into themselves. And similarly, like you mentioned earlier around how like shy you were as a kid. And like, you know, Gabby, I remember, I can't remember which country we were in. Let's go with Taiwan or somewhere. And there was this teacher who was an English teacher teaching these kids how to speak English. And so we were just in these markets, and they had asked, this teacher had asked us if the kids could practice speaking English so that they could get, whatever their learning outcomes were. And I'm like, oh yeah, Gabby will do that. So much to Gabby's 16-year-old dislike she's now stuck in a marketplace talking to all these small children who are trying their best to speak English. And I remember I did take a photo of that just to use against her later. But it's definitely seeing her come from that to, doing coaching stuff. I threw a pen to her last night and Gabby's probably the person I've thrown a pen to the most in the last probably 12 to 24 months. And, when my curveball wasn't breaking, it was this is what you need to do because I know what you need to do to make that adjustment. And so it's been really cool to see how she's developed as a person.
Yeah, that's great. They're great stories. Couple more before we get to our quiz. Shanna's, we've already showed Yuki. Shanna's has obviously... So she's now 10 years plus, and time flies, right? Because she spent 10 years at another club. But you and her, and then you've got Sloane, who's come in and out with a couple of kids, and obviously Lil Cavs, Lil BT. You've sort of become this group of outfielders, and I know you and Shanna's have been important to each other because she sort of came and you're like, okay, this is another person who's going to take fly balls with me and go do extra stuff with me. And she was the same with you and the same with Sloane. Tell me what it's like. You've got this little outfield crew now. How much fun is it to have those people beside you and out there with you and, your mates as well?
Oh, look, Shannon's is absolutely one of my favourite people. And I think, if we could go back to the conversation about leadership, I'm Shanna's shadow in 90% of trainings because it means I don't have to think and I'll be like, hey, what's Shanna's doing? I'm going to go do that. And then I think Shell will get there and be like, oh, what are Hannah and Shanna's doing? I'm going to also go do that. So sorry, Shanna's, if you ever do want to do any training things by yourself because I don't think you're going to have that chance ever. And I think now that you have a little human following you around, I feel like your life is always going to be like that. So I was just helping you train. But yeah, I think, we have each other's back. We know what we need to do. We're pretty open with each other in giving feedback. We definitely are team outfield. We do love a good competitive streak, which I'm sure the infielder group is not opposed to either. Knowing our infield group, thanks Bronnie and Shay and Simone and G and everybody who's in the infield. So we do have a lovely little rivalry, but I think both on and off the field, we are an outfield group and we do support each other and get it done.
Get it done. I love it. This is one of my favourite photos and I couldn't fit everyone in, but this is drinking from the cup post-win. Do you guys remember doing this? Or?
Oh, yeah.
On more than one occasion.
How does beer taste better in a cup? I mean, it really does.
I mean, it can't taste worse, can it? Beer
well,
is horrible.
Did you put beer in it or something else?
Oh, look, I probably put a cruiser in it. Let's be real.
Probably got jelly shots in
did.
there.
Yeah.
No, they
hot summer's day after a win, you can't. There's nothing better.
100%.
Nothing better.
That's one of my favourite photos. Couple of other fun ones. God, you've got some good memories with Yuki. This is a Yuki podcast.
Yeah.
Very lucky to have spent time with a lot of really cool people.
Yeah.
And so I probably should have. And one of your other great mates up the top there, Gunsy. Shout out to Gunsy too.
Is that Cracker on the phone there too? Because she was getting FOMO.
Probably. That wouldn't surprise me. But to finish off before we do the quiz, Nick, I mean, we had to mention that you obviously went on to bigger and better things in the Big Cats. Hard to say that.
Just
different
different
Let's
pathways.
call it different. But to play VFOW footy for Geelong, and we were watching, and it was like the best day ever. Did you win that game?
No, we only won.
You didn't
game.
win any games.
No, we weren't great while I was there, which is why I've ended up at Box Hill.
Yep, and now you're in the right colours on the right-hand side, mighty Hawks. But tell us about the journey to footy and sort of what you're up to now, because people listening will want to know. But also, how cool is it for photos like that, where you've got Reece and Charlotte, Chevy's kids? You talked about the age gap, and, Chevy's in a little bit of a different period in her life, but now getting to share those moments. I know Val's been down with the kids before, and, well, they're adults now, but with Mitchie and Ryan. But how cool is it now that all these years later you've still got those mates that, you know, come and support you?
Very, very cool. Obviously, leaving the sport, like I was in it for a long time as a junior, and then for a few years while I was at Springvale, from sort of 2009 to 2023-ish, like roughly.
Mm-hmm.
So a good amount of time. But yeah, making the decision to leave the sport, and it's not a closed door because those relationships are still there. Because those relationships are still there, and they're so strong. This is recorded. Yeah, because it's not a chapter of my life that I want to close off by any means.
Yeah.
Amazing, like I've spoken about, amazing growth for me as a human. And I know it's a big thing to say, but I truly mean it. I never would have gone on to play football had I not have been in the Springvale environment. I genuinely mean that, because I grew so much in confidence, and I went and chased another dream, which was to play football and at a high level. Whether I knew that was a dream growing up or not, I used to make the boys at Sale warm up by kicking the footy with me and playing markers up. So I think it was sort of a burning thing that was there that I never had the opportunity to do. Yeah. My family growing up was heavily involved with the baseball club as well as the Jacksons, and that's just what we did. That was our Sundays, that was our weekend, and it was true. It was either join in with the boys, Chris and James, or sit and watch. So I was like, well, we're going to join in. So yeah, but the opportunity came up to play football, and I jumped at it, and I threw everything at it, as any person would, and any player at Springvale can attest to. When you set your mind to something, you throw everything at it. So it did clash. It was a summer sport. Springvale was summer league. So, yeah, I made the switch and I was still doing the drive. So I was going from Sale to Casey to Cranbourne, and then eventually thought, no, I want to give this a crack. And I quit my job and I moved up to Melbourne to make it a bit easier. And then, yeah, when I got drafted to Geelong for 2 seasons, it was during the COVID years. So it was pretty impacted, and I had a bit of adversity and some setbacks while I was there, and learnt a lot and grew a lot. And then, yeah, went on to have 2 seasons there and then finish up at Box Hill, where I've had the opportunity to reconnect with with some of the locals back. This was at Casey Field. So, yeah, Chevy had touched base with me early in the season and said, let us know when you're at Casey Demons. We live around the corner. I'd love to bring the kids down. So, when we played there, I messaged her on that weekend. She goes, yep, I'll be there. And, yeah, lo and behold, she was there, and we got a photo with the kids. So, yeah, really, really proud to have that family behind me to still continue to follow me, even though my path went away from baseball. Not forever, but it has dragged me away. So, I'm extremely appreciative to the people that have continued to support and follow me along the way, because, yeah, I do the same in return. And
yeah, cool. I think the Masters team's recruiting.
Oh, yeah? Well, I'll keep an eye.
Maybe. It's hard to get into that team.
Yeah.
Very cool, Nick. 30 and 5. This is my favourite part of the pod every week. Favourite on-field memories, and there might be one or two, but is there anything that sort of comes to mind that you think of when I say and it might not be you doing something, it might be the team or someone else, or...
I mean, I know you don't like these to be about you, but I do enjoy every time I'm in the outfield when you're pitching, making people look pretty stupid at some of your junky pitches that make some really interesting swings. So every time I see that, I get I get all of the appreciation and the entertainment out of that. I mean, I don't often remember a lot of the positive bits of things that I've done. I do remember one grand final where there was like an ice cream cone catch that I've managed to catch over here somehow, which I'm not sure I could.
You were playing left field.
Yeah. And I'm not sure I could replicate that if I tried, but that's okay. And then, all of the funny pieces, like I just remember the first infield fly of last season when we had both Bron and Shay playing at club ball together, and peak, you get a good vantage point from the outfield, so you can see a lot. So I find my favourite memories are literally like the everyday entertainment factors of the game. I don't think I have one particular favourite memory.
That's a good answer.
This is hard to answer. It's not an easy
I know,
question,
right?
is it?
Well, you've been removed for a little while,
so it's like the memory bank's going back a little bit. But I can probably put it down like a favourite sort of season or like period of time. And Obviously, the year Katie Soates came over and played with us, I had a great season that year and I had a lot of enjoyment. And, a couple of good on-field memories with her as well. I think it was like a diving catch at second base and she's pitching. It was like, I'll get you a hot dog and a Coke for that. So, it's just little things like that where you're playing with some of the best people and you go, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
She messaged me a couple of days ago. She's become addicted to the podcast. She will be listening. And she's in training again. So I'm sorry I'm making this public announcement, Kate, without asking your permission, but she's decided she needs to rectify that year she came out. We got annihilated in the grand final. She needs to make amends, so she's back in training.
Excellent.
So I'll have to quiz her. I'm trying to get her out here in Jan to do a podcast and come to the reunion. 30th anniversary function. So, look, here's hoping, but I hope the gym's going well, Kate. Good memories, you two. Off-field memories. Any that come to mind?
Where do we begin?
Singing Johnny Farnham.
On more than one occasion.
I can't believe you're the first person to mention that.
Circle
I was in the
It's
car.
massive.
Yeah. I was somewhere and Huffy sent me a message. This is like probably a week ago. John Farnham came on. I can't listen to it. It's reserved
Turn it off.
for grand final nights.
Turn it off. If it's in season, you must turn it off.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I can't. I can listen to the song, but I cannot listen to it without recalling those memories. Great memories.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny because when you say that we have a standard practice for when we win grand finals, that this is the one we always do, it just kind of reflects on how many we must have won to have a standard practice every time we win. There is a process. When we win, we must do this. We must sing John Farnham and we must do ground balls at midnight.
Yeah.
And we have done those many a times.
And now it's Proud Mary's now.
It is. We've added
inserted into the
as well as.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you progress through the backup dancer process.
You've got to apply.
Yep, you've got to apply.
It's an application process.
Panels
absolutely.
Okay, good.
Auditions.
And there's only one panellist, and it's Shay.
And she
decides.
So it should be.
Absolutely.
Love those memories. Favourite teammate? Or favourite character that you've played with?
I mean, they're different questions.
You give me your answer.
Well, my favourite teammate, I mean, the default is Shanna's, right? Like, she has been my rock in the outfield for the longest of times, and it would be remiss of me to for her not to be my favourite teammate. But I think, Abe and I had some really good communication strategies for our 9 to 3s. We would have our little code words in Japanese for whether we were going to go for the throw out or not.
I love that.
Yep. Unfortunately, I don't need to speak to G in Japanese, but it doesn't mean we can't.
I was going to say, maybe you should.
Yeah.
Didn't get to play a lot with Mandy, but favourite teammate's Mandy. Yeah, favourite club person. Favourite person to run into at the club.
No, I love it.
Yeah, so
she'll love that.
Yeah, I would choose Mandy. Yeah.
Shout out to you, Dodge. Best player you've played with?
All of them.
I know this is a really hard question.
All of them.
You play with a lot.
All of them. So many. I mean, best is subjective, right? But we're not going down that rabbit hole. I mean, I'm sure this will be an answer for lots of people, and I know it has already, but like from a consistently over the longest period of time, it's got to be Shay, right? And like from if you go purely statistics, output, contribution, like that's it. But I think one of my favourite players I've played with, and I think you mentioned before, like from a club people perspective, like Cass is one of my favourite people because she has like unconditional positive regard and that positive feedback of I'll give this a crack. I'll try my best. And Cass will be like, you'll do it. It'll be great. It's like, I'll try. It's like, no, you didn't just try. You did it. And I'm like, thanks, Cass.
Yeah, that's exactly what she sounds like. Yeah.
One of my favourites.
Yeah, cool answer. Shout out to Cass.
And I agree. Too. Like for me, with who I've played, it has to be Shay.
Yeah.
And that's just I can't argue with that.
It would have been Kate if you had won that grand final.
Yay. Yeah.
It's always redemption. But yeah, I come back to Kel as a role model for me. It's just that I'm a similar sort of person. And you're right, like watching her get up the line, just the way she, puts the ball into play, runs up the line with every bit of her energy and effort.
Yeah.
And consistent over the years that she's been there. So Shay for me, the best. But yeah, for me, role models, Kel.
Isn't it it's such a hard question. I was thinking about this, and I would probably, if I was on your side of the table, would say those two, because Kel, and it's probably because it's a pitcher-catcher thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought Kel made me so much better as a player. And probably Shay too, because Shay would get all the hits and score the runs. But then I would pitch and Kel would tell me what to do and help me. And I could just throw whatever I wanted. Even if she didn't call it, I could decide halfway and change it. She never yelled at me. She got annoyed sometimes, but didn't yell. But she made me so much better. And I think the people who've made me better have been the best. I'm not saying they're like the absolute best player in the history of the game, but they made me and the team better. And I think that, the subjective nature of the discussion, what you mentioned, Hannah, is true. But I completely agree with that too. And both, inspirational. Funniest person. Nicole's got a funny look at her face. It's hard.
You've got to be up there.
Hey, you've made the list.
Great moment for me. If I wanted to be in any of these questions, I would want to be the funniest. And I have not received a vote yet, so thank you.
Well,
I feel like it's all about combinations.
This has come up a lot.
Yeah. Like as in, I mean, I know it's been mentioned before, but the Shay and Kat dynamic is absolutely hilarious, right? Like the entertainment factor between them two is on point. But I also find entertainment in other interactions. Like I do find it very funny when you and Shay disagree. It is it says a lot of
like
entertainment.
Yesterday?
Oh, probably. Every time the heated discussions do entertain me in a very funny way. But Shay's the best. Yeah. She's just so funny.
Yeah. And have you seen any of the pods? Because she's got now the Proud Mary thing.
Yes.
Obviously a thing, but she's now got a wig.
Yes.
So she not only is she doing Proud Mary, she's coming dressed as Tina Turner.
I would also just like to add a newcomer to that category though. LBT's getting up there.
Oh, yeah. LBT is getting up there.
She's new to the category, but I think she has potential.
I love that vote. I second that.
Yep.
Well done, BT. Favourite coach? And there's been a few for both, even though you haven't played for a couple of years, Nick.
The most under Mick, I reckon. Yeah. And a lot of respect for Mick and the way he goes about it. Like I mentioned, now as a person, I love direct feedback. Yeah. Love it. And I would respond and I did respond well to it, but more so now. Yeah. And extremely influential in the women's space at Springvale and creating it what it is today. Obviously bringing you into the club and for me it has to be Mick. Yeah. Learnt a lot and a lot of respect.
I think I was very lucky. I have been able to span like a few eras, and so like Billy was here when I first started, transitioning into Mick, transitioning into the next Wern in yourself, and then Shay, and then Shanna's, and I think had so many opportunities, but I think the person who got the best out of my performance has definitely been Shay. I think from her technical capacity can't be questioned compared to anybody else, and the way that she's gone about her own business and now in her, I guess, current era of, a lot more giving back to the sport and putting that time into others and getting that technicality right. She's definitely done a lot of work with me on my hitting, and, I'll go to something else in another country and be given the same pointers that Shay's giving me. So she's absolutely onto something, and we know that. But I think also from conversations I've had with Shay over the years about how I guess I was used early in my career and how, she like you ask her how to use me and she will tell you exactly how to use me in different circumstances and, for me, how to get the best out of me and out of my place. So very, very like individualized as well as just team oriented.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And the cool thing about Shay's, like we've talked about her longevity and how long she's been at the top, not just for us, but playing for the Emeralds and stuff. But the fact that she's always found ways to give back. So she hasn't been the coach for quite some period of time, but she's still coaching, and we're so lucky to have that. And I see that in Bron. You know, I saw that last year. They're so generous with their time, but they're still working really hard and at the top of their game and still performing. So I love that, you know, a lot of people are the opposite. They want to focus on what they're doing and making sure they're doing everything, and then the other bits sort of gets left. But they're not like that. And so I love that about Shay too. Great answers. Final question, and this will be interesting. I haven't had great answers for this, and I probably took your answer away. But the Mick Wern question, so when we hear the sex music, do we think of anything in particular that springs to mind?
Well, I mean, mine was definitely the example we used before, but I do have a backup answer, which is possibly a concern because there are probably many we could have chosen. But we're at Doncaster. I was in right field. I feel like you were pitching again. Let's be real. It usually happens when you're pitching.
I know this moment, and I was not.
Yeah, you were not in a good space this day.
No.
We did. I don't know if we didn't win, but it was just not the timing. It was not the vibe. But I went to catch a fly ball. It was very short. I remember running in quite far to behind first base-ish. Actually, it ended up in foul territory. No, so I think it started off in fair territory.
Fair. Yeah.
I, instead of catching the ball, either fumbled it. Anyway, moral of the story, didn't stay in my glove. It ended up falling out of my glove, I think, into foul territory. And because for those of you who have somehow never seen me play or run, I'm not real good at slowing down. And because I had busted my ass to try and get this ball, I, in the midst of kind of dropping the ball and it falling on the ground, I managed to kick it under the fence, which meant that this said just drop fly ball was now a double.
Yeah, and I was pitching.
Yes.
And I was not happy, and I was less happy when I saw that was not called an error and it was called a double.
No.
What?
I was not happy.
Oh, that
to
is
this day,
interesting.
I'm not, you know, on Shay's level of, you know, getting angry about the scorebook, but that I was not happy.
I did not know that was not an error.
You owe me for that.
That was like 3 errors in one.
Well, it's now recorded that you are taking the
Oh, look, I will take accountability and responsibility for my mistakes.
Nick, anything?
I'm going to be honest, nothing screams out at me. Nothing screams out at me.
That means we didn't stuff up too much, maybe.
Oh, no, I'm sure that's not the case.
Mick would disagree.
I'm sure that's not the case. Yeah, I think we need to bring Mick on.
Mick's coming on in a few weeks.
Can Mick do his own segment of Mick?
We'll just do an entire podcast on the moments.
Just this.
Yep.
But you might need a bigger space so that there's room to move.
Yeah,
I think that would be
a lot of impersonations.
Sorry to let you down there.
No, that's okay. Yeah. That's okay. To finish off, we have got a function on Friday the 31st of Jan. You will be there.
Correct.
You will be there, and we're going to have a few quiet waters and celebrate. I mean, it's been awesome talking about. I've loved just talking about the memories and the cool stuff that, like, I've got a good memory, but I don't remember everything. So hearing different people's perspective has been amazing. I've loved having you back, Nick. I love that the door's not closed, and I'm sure the listeners do too. And Han, to you, keep doing what you're doing, and it's been great to see both of you develop and grow. Obviously, I'm just 1 or 2 years older than you guys. And I look forward to you guys being part of the club for a long time to come. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for inviting me back after a long hiatus.
Do you guys actually want to say anything before we finish, or shout out to anyone? I shouted out to your parents. You're welcome.
Shout out to my parents also.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your parents.
Yeah.
We covered off a lot.
We did.
No, but thank you very much, honestly, for inviting me back and for, continuing the love, even though it's been a long period of time away.
It's great to have you.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
See you soon.